Hello, my name is James Ducker and I am a bespoke shoemaker. I run a company called Carréducker with my business partner Deborah Carré. I'm at the Arterton lounge today to talk about hand-sewn shoes. Now, to me, the primary thing about a pair of shoes is that it needs to fit you. Shoes, unlike garments, can affect the health of your feet. So for example, if you're wearing a shirt that's the wrong size, it's the wrong size, but it does no harm to you. If you're wearing shoes that are the wrong size, they can actually damage your feet. So a good fit is absolutely essential. The second thing to me that makes a good shoe is that you like them. You have to feel good in them. You have to like their style, you have to like the color, you have to like the shape. So that's very important. Third thing I would say is the quality of the materials and the quality of the construction. Now that will make a very big difference to how the shoe behaves on your feet. For example, a lot of shoes these days are 100% cemented, so there's very little stitching in the construction, whereas stitched shoes tend to be better, tend to last longer. To me, is pretty straightforward. People may not agree with me, but the most important thing to me is do not wear the same pair of shoes on consecutive days. Do not do it. It's bad for the shoes and it's bad for your feet. All of us sweat, and our feet, which people don't think about their feet sweating particularly, but our feet sweat a lot during the day. And that sweat can only go to one of two places. It goes into your socks and it goes into your shoes. You need to let that dry out. So you need to give the shoes 24 hours of non-wearing to dry out. Because what happens if you don't is the sweat accumulates inside the shoe and eventually it will start to rot. Second one is to have a good cleaning regime. So your shoes will inevitably get dirty, they might get dusty, they might get wet. So if they get dusty, brush them off. If they get muddy, you have to, or wet, you have to let them dry naturally, not against a heat source. And when they're dry, you can brush the dirt and the mud off. And at that point, your maintenance regime should start. So, most importantly, you have to think of shoes, you have to think of leather like skin. So you have to wash, you have to cleanse, and you have to moisturize. So think of your shoes in the same way. So 3 or 4 times a year, you need to use a shoe cream, and I would use one of the better brands which have natural ingredients like beeswax, lanolin, natural oils, and rub it in, and this takes off the previous polish and it nourishes the leather. You put that on, leave it for a while, buff it off, and then the last thing is polish. It gives a protective layer over the leather so that it protects you from the elements, so from wet. You can polish as much as you like. You can get, you can get a high mirror shine if that's what you want, but you do need some polish on all shoes just to protect them from the wet. One is how they look, so the aesthetics of them. And it's hard to pinpoint one thing, but it's accumulation of small details. I think hand-sewn shoes are characterized by the attention to detail. So it's small details which individually you wouldn't notice so much, but as a whole, they create a look that's different to any other kind of shoe you're going to see. So for example, on the welt, the stitch size is usually smaller, and the fudging, which is marking of the lines, is usually more defined. Around the top line, which is this part of the shoe, on most shoes you have the lining and the upper, and it's one or other is folded and then they're stitched together, which creates a beautiful line. On a hand-sewn shoe, very often there's a little piece of leather that's stitched between called slip beading or piping, and it just gives a more refined finish. So the aesthetics is one thing. Obviously fit is another thing, because hand-sewn shoes are generally bespoke, i.e. they're made on a last which is made for the customer, and so they should be the best fitting shoes that you can get. So that's two things. So the third thing I would say is that the materials that hand-sewn shoes are made with are generally the best quality of everything, and this means that they're going to last longer. For example, I'm wearing a pair of shoes today which are 21 years old. Now I can show them to you, and you can see that they've got signs of age, but they still look good and they're still wearable, and I wear them a lot. These are my 21-year-old shoes. They've never been resoled. Now I will admit to putting a sticker sole on. One thing I would say about leather while we're here is the thing that will go first on a pair of shoes is the upper. And can you see these tiny little micro cracks? Now these inevitably form at points where the shoe creases or gets pressure from the foot. But the regime of cream and polish will slow it down. You can't stop it, but you can slow it down. So this is over 21 years, so it's pretty good. There's still some life left in these shoes, absolutely. And the way that they're lasted, I don't know if you can see on this profile here, is a bit more exaggerated on the hand-sewn shoe, and it tends to be a little bit more elevated here and slightly less tight to the last. And I think that's because with a bespoke last, we make them look as good as we can. But this customer's got a fairly wide foot, but there are things that we can do on an individual last which will give it more pleasing contours. And one of those is this scoop on the vamp. And I think bespoke shoes tend to have that scoop that ready-to-wear shoes don't. So this is a particularly high quality, well-made, good ready-to-wear shoe, Goodyear welted. It's an excellent shoe, but it's not in the same league as a hand-sewn. The differences are just huge, and a lot of that is about how they're made. Obviously, this is made in a factory, and this is made by hand by a master craftsman. And what factories have done is that they've made machines which mimic all the processes. Obviously, a machine is built for speed, and so when you're making a hand-sewn shoe, the maker spends a lot more time thinking about small details, whereas someone who's working in a factory, skilled as they are, they don't have the time to make micro adjustments. I have a very simple answer to this. 85 billion animals are farmed and killed for human consumption every year. And every single one of those 85 billion animals has a skin. If you're going to raise and kill an animal for human consumption, it's your ethical obligation to use every part of that animal. So the skin of an animal is not edible, and it has no use apart from making leather. So to my mind, if you don't make leather from the skin, you have to do something with that leather, with that skin, before it's turned into leather. You have to either incinerate it, or you have to bury it in the ground in landfill, both of which are problematic. And if you think about 85 billion skins, it's a lot of skins which would have to be burnt, which to my mind would be completely unethical. People come to us for many reasons. The principal one is probably fit. Now, people, as we said before about average feet and people not sort of fitting into that well into an average sized shoe, they come because they're just sick of having uncomfortable shoes. I mean, wearing an uncomfortable shoe kind of ruins your day. The next one I would say is the kind of bespoke nature of it, the personalization. So there's a pleasure in choosing the color, choosing the toe shape, choosing the heel height, choosing the style lines, choosing the thickness of the sole, choosing the number of stitches per inch on the welt. All of those things are part of of why people come to us. One of the other reasons to buy bespoke shoes is you're buying into the tradition. So, for example, in the City of London, there's our guild, which is the worshipful company of cordwainers, is over 750 years old. So you know that you're buying into a tradition that's at least that old. And that tradition has been passed down from maker to maker. And so there's a sense of history involved in it. People appreciate objects which are handmade. Okay, our process begins with a consultation with the customer. So they come in, we ask them beforehand to wear a pair of shoes that they've had for a long time and that they love, so that we can see the wear inside the shoe. And we ask them to come with ideas about what they want. And then during that first meeting, we talk about styles, we talk about colors, we talk about leathers, we talk about when they want to wear the shoes, if it's a special occasion, do they need something flexible, do they need something they can wear with a suit and with jeans, all of those questions are discussed. And we also measure their feet. So we do that with a pencil, paper and a tape measure, a very traditional way of doing it, but that's the best way we've found. And then we send their measures to our last maker, and they make the last, which is the wooden block that you make the shoe on. And the last is not a facsimile of the foot. It's because when you walk, your foot changes shape. So the last shoe has to accommodate those changes when you walk. But your measures are included. So measures across here, and across there are important measures. And then when we receive the last, we give the last to our closer. We usually put masking tape on the last, and then we draw on the style that we want. And from there, the closer will make paper patterns from our drawings, cut out 2D leather pieces, that's called plicking, and then they prepare all the leather pieces and stitch them together to make the upper. Then they return the last and the upper to us. So we always do one fitting, often it's two, sometimes it's three. It really depends on the complexity of the foot. Once the fit is good, once the customer's happy with the fit, and we're happy with the fit, we then make the shoes to the customer's chosen specifications. And when the shoes are finished like this, we send the shoe and the last back to the last maker, and they make the trees. So the trees are bespoke to the shoes. And then we box them and deliver them. Okay, well, I think that draws it to a close. I'd like to thank you all for joining me. I hope you found it interesting. If you want to get in touch, you can do it via our website, which is carréducker.com. So yeah, feel free to get in touch. Thank you very much.